Well, this is still the morning brief right here on Channels Television, and we began today by talking about the economy, which means our first focus will be about the inflation rate, which has actually hit a 28-year high. It means the last time this figure was ever recorded was back in 1996, as far back as then. So now it is 34.19% for the headline inflation rate for the month of June. So we'll be talking about the trend for the 19 consecutive months now that this has happened. And right now we have Dr. Paul Ikele, who's the Registrar and CEO, Institute of Business Development, joining us on the morning brief. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today. I mean, we talk about the key highlights of inflation figures, and the first thing that we will see is food inflation. When you ask anyone about the challenges in this country, everyone will say, let's eat first, at least. Before, we heard someone say, we have to eat before we travel, at least. So everyone is talking about food because that is what is affecting a lot of people. And then you begin to ask, how did we even get here in the first place?
Thank you very much. You see, inflation has been a very serious effect and impact in our economic system. In view of the price, once prices jumps up, it doesn't come down. And there are key three factors in inflation. We have the demand pull inflation, we have costs push inflation, we have induced inflation. And under the demand pull inflation, where prices, in view of maybe earnings, when your earnings becomes higher and you begin to purchase what ordinarily you had not planned, and then the demand for that item becomes higher, and then the prices will go up because the demand becomes more than the supply. Then when you look at the cost push effect, that cost push effect is because of cost of production. Where, for instance, the cost of producing, just like when we are going to look at the tariffs, why prices are increasing, when a producer can no longer afford to meet up with the requirement according to plant, okay, and for him to produce a particular unit of an item, the price would have increased, and for him to break even, of course, he has to actually adjust that price so that the market will be able to, after selling, can come back to being business. In that instance, there will be minimum number of supplies for a larger number of demand. So there will be an inflation. And then the other one, which we say maybe induced or input inflation, is exactly what the system had actually discussed about increasing salaries, where there's so much money, okay, and people salaries are being paid to workers, and there's so much excess money in the system, and the demand in the market for a smaller goods is there. So inflation has been a serious effect in our system, because you see, the government, not even the government, all the economic factors have to come to play. The activators have to look at why is it that prices are always going up and it does not come down. What is the cause? What can be done to ensure that those prices, even when it goes up, there will be what we call a supporting a mint to cushion it, so that you can afford it, and what are the values? So inflation, although I would say causes of inflation could be maybe global crisis, economic crisis, but then the effect is disastrous, and it can tilt planning. If you had planned with your salary what you're going to spend, and all of a sudden you're in the market and you can't even afford to buy the basic things you need, of course it will adjust your plan. So the system has to actually do something. The government, of course, because of course when you talk about the system, the government is the first operator, they are the lead of the system. So they have to do something. They have to actually look at the motivating factor in economic activities. How can these activities be encouraged to continue to go into production? You can do that by coming out with a lot of support system, by providing maybe reduction in tariffs, by increasing in infrastructure, by ensuring that even the minimum producers have access to cheap will I say raw materials or available raw materials so that their cost of production can still be at the level of their planning. If you don't do that, of course, you must produce and sell so that you can be in market. And of course, Nigerian economic system, by the market economy, where you have to produce and sell to make profit and to get back. You must have what we call, you have to break even. And if you don't break even, you'll not be in business. And as I speak to you, a lot of people are no longer in business. Even when we talk about production system, people you produce and you go to the market, after that you can't come back to do that business. And it has created a lot of problems in the system. People now produce fake products. People now, even when their products are expired, they want to get into the system. It has introduced fraud. It has introduced all kinds of vices in the system. So actually, the government has to actually begin to declare emergency on some economic sectors or products or activities, so that the focus, all hands has to be on deck to see what can be done to resolve those issues or to tame it. I'm aware the government has come up with palliatives to support all that. But you now look at the channels. That takes us to the Nigerian, will I say, the government architecture. You have the state, the federal, the state, and the local government. These palliatives, what effect will they have in economic or economic stabilization of ordinary human being, especially the bottom of the pyramid in economic level? What effect?
Because I was just going to ask, I mean, you talked about government intervention.
Yes.
The government has already said, oh, we're giving 20 trucks each to each state governor, including the FCT, to tackle this problem. And we also know about the 150-day window, which is a duty-free window, import window for food commodities. Some have said, oh, how is this encouraging food importation? And then is it not countering you saying we should encourage local production? So what do you think the impacts will be in the 150-day window? And of course, there's 20 trucks of rice that the government has decided to give to states. How would it even reach the real people who need this?
Thank you very much. Well, I will say, well, for the 150 days window and the products that are going to be allowed to come in, we will say thank you to the government for coming out with that kind of gift. But unfortunately, if you look at our entire economic system, why maize? Those products listed, of what impact? Will the maize increase production of the goods that are related to maize? So why not look at core products that can be allowed 150 days? What is the equivalent of that 150 in terms of money? That 150 days, the government is going to allow free duties and taxes. How much is the government losing? What effect will it be on the system? Now, this income that will come within that period, because you see, even in a developed climate, if there's a window for palliative, government will be able to determine, say, okay, this period we are giving this, look at how much money we are looking at that will be generated, and look at how we want to distribute it. Look at the key sectors. Look at the element. Is it the bottom of the pyramid base? Look at the states and things like that, so that the flow, just like what happened during the what do you call it, the last crisis, where palliatives were sent and it was taught here and there. So they must be directioned, they must be channeled, so that you know you come out with a policy during the implementation, you review activities, and you determine what impact has it made on the entire system, including me and you. Because as I speak with you, everybody is complaining. Prices are jumping up, they can no longer meet up the cost of production, and they're looking at tariffs, for example. Tariffs have become so high, and honestly, I don't know the basis for some of this increase in tariff. For example, electricity class A, B, C. Most people that are on class A cannot even afford to pay, and cannot even, when they pay, they can no longer go in production. Do you understand? So when you bring some of these goods by importation, how are you going to direct it? How will it support? So I would have suggested that before government comes up with such windows, they should have interactions, open conversations with a focused group. Do you understand? Fine for the 3 tiers of government, because you see, the local government are where we have the bottom base of the pyramid, because they reach the masses. okay, when this good comes, how will it get to you? And then local governments, of course, have their own channels of communication to the communities, to the market within the operating circle. They understand. So then the government can now, when they filter it, they say, yes, our impact has affected this segment, it has affected this segment. Though it's not enough, then they look at the next segment and come out with another pattern that will assist.
So many things, to take away, quick takes from what you have said so far. But if I could just follow up on the 150 to 180 day import duty-free window for importation of food. In the thinking of the government, it is to bring down the prices of, food commodities. But I wonder if it has been well thought out, particularly because our naira has weakened as against the exchange rate. And for those who are importing, they're going to be importing, amid the current realities of the dollar to the naira. So would it achieve that objective of crashing food prices based on this, sticking point?
I seriously doubt it. You see, because a lot of factors will come to play. You are just saying 150 days. 150 days, how many? Divided by 6. Well, so it's not up to 6 months. They understand. So what effect? And it is selected commodities. They understand. It's not even core commodities that will have a direct effect on families. Okay? And what was the reason for selecting those items? And the question I always ask, why do we always begin to talk about exchanging, dollarizing our activities? It is absolutely wrong. Just like the last time I came here, I talked about floating of naira. It has derailed the entire economic system. Even then, naira was 1,000. But look at now, naira is gone. So that impact, it will not. But it will, of course, it's a gift from the government. It's an open window, of course. Tariffs, custom duties, taxes, of course, it's the government's sole responsibility. For them to lift that, to ease it off, is fine. But then the impact, I doubt how far it will go. Because except it's going to be a continuous provisions. Do you understand? What sector, what window have you selected? Have you dealt with the window? How did you plan from the commencement of those goods and services, the flow, what is it going to be used to the end user? Let's take it for an example, the analysis. For example,
I wonder how many commodities are on the list. I wonder if there's rice, if there is maize.
There's no rice, wheat.
There's no rice. And rice is a staple. That rice is what, is high on the expectations of everyone.
There's brown rice. I think there's brown rice. Yes, there's brown rice, yes.
What about maize? Would it have the potential of bringing down the price of the eggs if maize is on that list?
I doubt. You see, when you talk about economic activity or commodities, maize or agro-allied products, you see, there are some of these things that is better activated within an economic system. Do you understand? For example, maize. Ordinarily, Nigeria has a fertile geographical layout. Do you understand? With the South Zone area. So maize could have been grown with the support of the government, provision of access to farmlands, and then so that the cost of production will be cheaper. And then, you see, of course, when maize is grown without importing it, the maize alone has a lot of compositions. Yes. Raw materials that can come off, a lot of things.
Even for pharmaceuticals.
Yes,
also.
Pharmaceuticals. So it generated so many other multiplier effects, the addition to the entire system. So those other items you are bringing, have you looked at the content? The content, and then for what duration and what particular industry is the focus or the target? You see, where is a gift? But to me, it shouldn't have come at this time. They should have looked at ways of assisting local producers, encouraging them through a particular system so that they can grow this, some of the agro-allied agro products and be able to utilize it. And then if as I speak with you, if you travel out of Lagos towards the east or towards the north, you can see some of these products already produced, but because they don't have access of bringing it or storage, they are wasted. They're wasted. The same as you see, we've spoiled, wasted. Some of them are roasting it, are wasted. So why now begin to import? For what purpose are you importing it? For what industry? Yes, let's test it, for example. The base comes in, which industry will use it? Of course, government should follow it up. So at the end of the day, we'll look at the end user, and then it will form a part of, because it's history, it will form a part of next events. Say, okay, last time we allowed 50 days, and so people were brought in. Look at the economic effect, how it's supported, so segment, even if it's a small segment. The next time they can now enlarge on that. But at the end of these days, we won't have reports of the effect of this period, and that has been our problem.
Let me come in here and sort of broaden this. There's a lot of conversation at the government level. They had a FEC meeting, and I want to imagine from the outcome of it, from what they said, that the economy formed a major part of the discussions, from the food to even the minimum wage and other things. Even at the National Assembly, they had an emergency session. The Minister of Planning was there, NNPCL, CBN. So it is expected that there's a lot of activity going on. But again, what we usually want to see is not just the activity, but the outcome of the activity, something tangible that the Nigerians can hold on to. But I've seen a trend, which I want you to speak to and properly assign responsibilities. So it looks like the federal government has consistently been trying to shed or shift some of the load to state governments. So that's why the minister, for example, say, well, we've given out these trucks. So look at the state governors, ask them, what are they doing? The president also earlier on said, well, I need governors to give me food production plan in 7 days. Let me know what you have. We've seen this, even with this Supreme Court judgment, again, the load has been shifted out to local government. So help us understand how we should appropriate the responsibilities. So what should we be looking at the federal government to do and asking them questions about? What should Nigerians be looking at the state governments to do and asking them questions about? What should they be looking at local governments to do now and asking them questions about, particularly when it comes to the economy?
Thank you very much. That's a very good topic, a very good statement you've made. You see, the core responsibility is planning. It said when you don't plan, you plan to fail. Of course, federal government being at the helm of affairs, and the architecture of the government system has created the federal government, the state government, and the local government. And just of recent, the Supreme Court has given an autonomy to the local government. Then it becomes the responsibility of federal government to articulate a planning system. Do you understand? Because as a father, a leader, you should have a planning system so that there should be channels of communication from the federal government, the state government, and the local government. Of course, the local government is at the foot level, and they communicate with the communities that actually are the end users. The state government can say, okay, they're like a middle level. If you put all these things in a pyramid, the federal government at the top level. Okay, the state government is at the middle level. The bottom of the base is the local government that deals with you and I. Okay, so when the federal government issues out some of these policies down to the state government at the middle level, the state government should be able, okay, in view of the plans set by the federal government, deal with the local government, who will now say, okay, which communities, what are they getting? Okay, what is the impact? Even if it's fertilizer, maize, what product, what is the product? Okay, for example, the local government should be able to do what we look at, an assessment, to look at areas they have the capability. Okay, so that even if they don't have, they should do a comparative advantage on areas they don't have. So that because the environment differs. Do you understand? So that in doing that, the state government can now equitably distribute to areas that the impact will be there and it will be productive. Just that you don't just share things because others are sharing. You have the capacity to study. Yes, this local government, look at what they are good in doing. Look at what they are not good in doing. Because so when those things comes up from the federal government, the state government will now push it to those articulated, capable areas that they can achieve results. Because the bottom line is the result. It's the essence of any business, is the profit, generation of wealth. So when the bottom line is that it comes from up, it fizzles off, no effect. And if you thought the next time something happens, There will be a case court, normally and things like that, and then it will fizzle off, and even the government, nobody will want to go there again. So one, the channels of distribution should be identified. Federal government, there should be a very good planning system, and there should have direct communication on all the three levels, okay, so that it will assist us, and even the press can follow up. You can travel to some of the local government to test actually has this thing filtered down there, although it may not be equitable enough for all the users, all the population. Do you understand? But which people has actually benefited and gained it? I don't know whether I'm communicating.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So, but before we go, Ming, a lot of challenges were faced in June, which means that we will see the ripple effect in July. Good. And it has already been said by, for example, Financial Derivatives Company already said, July figures will even be much higher than 34.19, which should, of course, make us scared right now.
Of course.
But is there something that can be remedied? Is there something that can be done before this happens?
Of course, severally. July will definitely be high. August will be high because of the trend. What are the economic activity on now that can ensure that it will improve tomorrow? If you look at the news here and there, they say fuel scarcity, and this creates fear on producers. It creates fear, and they say, well, we've been talking about security issues, and I tell you, the economic saboteurs who are using those to threaten productivity, and except you and I, all hands should be on deck. I suggest that if you have the opportunities, you should begin to see what we can do as individuals. We grow family farms. The other day it was on the news. The first lady had a farm where she grows green. I don't know whether you have. So these things can support and reduce prices if you have more of the substance support as an individual. Because you see, generally, the entire system, I don't know. I would just say, let's say, question mark. Because for the politicians, most of them are no longer interested. They are not even interested on economic improvement. They're rather interested in for the next term, how they want to. I should round up.
No. Go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead.
They are rather interested in how they will come for the election, whereas the poor masses are suffering. There are suicides almost every day. There's one I read yesterday. Somebody committed suicide in Ikorodu. Of course, and you understand. So the politicians are rather planning. They've spent 2 years and are planning, how am I going to come back? I want to be a godfather. It is wrong. You see, the government is for the people. And if the people are happy, if government can roll. Do you understand? And you see, even for the opposition parties, this is the time that all hands should be on deck. Let's support the government. Because the government, if they succeed, it will give us opportunities for development. It's better to improve on a good system than to improve on a bad system. Because for you to improve on a bad system, you have to review, reanalyze, and you spend more money to analyze it and you remove before you start all over again. But if a system is stabilized and is improved, of course, you would have known where to start, and of course, everybody will benefit. Sure.
So, for me, I'm just wondering how much of this caught us napping, and let me put the question in proper context. Okay. Because from about last year, July, the president had declared a state of emergency in the agriculture sector, and months after that, amid the rising cost of food prices, there was the assurance that we're expecting harvest from massive planting of wheat in Jigawa State. And even though we're in the rainy season now, if that had started from last year, we should be recording some progress in that regard, even if it will not be sufficient to feed the entire nation, but it should go some way. And in addition to that as well, the Minister of State for Agriculture was saying yesterday that there's a lot of activities ongoing in terms of food planting, but this is where we are. The price of tomatoes is skyrocketing. So if they had done sufficient work in terms of investment in agriculture from about last year and backed up with the right policies to bring down the cost of food, would we be talking about an importation window and the continuous increase in inflation this year?
We wouldn't. You see, I tell you, the North is an economic value to this country because of the kind of land space. It's savanna grass areas. There are cash crops that can be grown there. But of course, the fear, security. Yeah. Initially, there was this irrigation plan so that waters can be supplied inside. And then, of course, tomatoes, onions, yam, so many cash crops can even, it's enough to feed the country. And when we talk, at times we compare ourselves with developed countries. In US, farmers will produce to the maximum, to the level quota given by government, and they have to destroy the excesses. But look at us, we have the resources. Okay, why can't to support this production in those green areas? Do you understand? Of course, I tell you, if this there's a support to a system that can enhance the production of those products or those agro-allied products in those areas, it will so much solve a lot of problems, and it will support our economic, and it will generate an internally generated income, because one, it will create employment, two, it will produce people who eat food. Three, you see, there will be peace. I don't understand. Families can plan, but when you are not sure when the next meal is coming, of course, you can't plan. So I think the Ministry of Agri should do more on that. The government should see what they can do on that, because if we become productive, at times, what makes an economy stable is when you have a productive economy, either in agro-allied, mineral resources, or even in service provisions. Okay, so all hands should be on. The government should do more on that. I support it, because there's mass land. It's mass land. You can even do mechanized agro system. Do you understand? Sure. Even the new Ministry of Livestock, of course, there's a mechanized system of feeding livestock. Do you understand? And they will mass produce. If you go to the UK, for example, go to Oxford, they have farmers that has a product. Those agro producers. A cow is heavy because they are sustained, they are maintained. So why can't we replicate it in Nigeria, and we have the land?
Dr. Keller, just quickly, I mean, the MPC, the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee, will hold its bi-monthly meeting next week. What are you expecting? Retain the status quo or change it? Do something different? Which one?
Review, and I won't say review and look at areas you can amend, look at areas you can sustain, but we should move forward, and we should see what we can do to reduce pricing, or at least to cushion the effect. Two, they need to look at the bottom base. Okay. Certain tariffs, in fact, subsidies, should look at some tariffs, electricity tariffs. Who and who uses it? What is the basis? You should look at the nucleus. You know, when you're planning, they can say, okay, 4 of us here, we can afford 200, no problem. But the others who are micro producers, they can't even afford to pay 15 to get electricity. Sure. Is it a street? You know, and these people need to live. They are actually why you are in government. Do you understand? Yes. Because poverty, even in the Bible, it's all can continue. But you have to sustain them. You have to provide for them.
All right. So, thank you very much, Dr. Paul Ekele, Registrar, CEO, Institute of Business Development. Thanks a lot for your time and your contribution on the morning brief. All right. It's still the morning brief right now. We've been advised if you can plant any crop in your building, in your premises, if you have a garden, please just invest in that and make a difference also. But we'll take a very short break right now. We'll be back with more on the morning brief. Please stay with us.